it was like, if you wanted to be grateful, like think about everything you had right now, and then think about everything you have right now being gone, and you have nothing. It's just the land in your home. You're sitting there, your house is gone. And then think about it being restored. And think about the feeling like you feel when that's all restored. That's gratitude.
Hey guys, we are Unconventional Norms. We share stories of people who have found success or are on the path to find their own success in their own unconventional ways. In society, we've often seen this common culture to have to get perfect grades, to always compare ourselves to others and needing to get to the top college in order to reach success. And we want to change this culture and to see that there are many different unconventional ways to find success.
Right, so here with us today, we have Whitney alumni from class of 2018, and she now goes to Cornell University. She's done a lot of activist work for undocumented immigrants, and her name is Stella. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So we were interested in, like, you've done activist work for undocumented immigrants, right?
Yes. I specialize in immigration and undocumented immigrant rights, and advocacy in that area, as well as labor organization.
So what kind of stuff have you done?
What kind of stuff have you done?
Or like, how does it work? How do you even get into something like that? Yeah, like I have no idea what that kind of world is like.
So it's really, really secretive, because a lot of the time it kind of like you were coordinating with me, it's all about safety and issues. You can't even have a Zoom meeting, because a Zoom meeting will give you a list of attendance, right? Like, it's actually insane how there's like a whole world behind the shadows, because fighting for the people in the shadows that can't come to light because of our immigration issues today.
So if you guys can't have Zoom meetings, what do you guys do now with coronavirus?
Right now, we use different messaging apps. We try our best to be as accessible as possible, because that's like the biggest goal, and as inclusive as possible. So it's not like we don't text each other. We just are very careful and intentional with all our messages. And with every message, we try to be intentional and deliberate in what we're trying to say too, because that, like, anything taken out of context could be legally used against us. So
yeah.
Fighting for the undocumented community is, you have to know just like so much legal background to it.
Wow, that's crazy.
Or else you're gonna be unprepared. You have to know your rights. Yeah.
So do you have to message on like end-to-end encrypted apps?
No.
Like that?
You're just like typing in the dark.
Who knows?
Like
who knows? Maybe agent. I do. I'll just keep that one a secret.
And how'd you first like get into the advocacy? Like, how did you know that you wanted to do that?
Right. Well, I was thrown into it with my family situation and the way that the ABC school district runs. I went to the administration at Whitney High School. I'm class of 2018. And I would give them proposals upon proposals about know your rights workshops, or like why would you not want to teach your students their rights as a public school? Well, first of all. Second of all, like being there as a community, supporting these students, having guaranteed funding for undocumented students who may not have access to like federal assistance like other students do. Those are all things that I've gone to like Whitney High School too, and all like shut down. So as a student, like I saw the need and the urgency, because it's not just that we're fighting for a specific community and the non-citizens of this community, also because we're in like such a political climate that demands action, that demands mobilization, or else people are going to suffer family separation or be deported. Like, these are people's lives on stake. And I think that's like, it's the seriousness and the pervasiveness of this issue that really called me to work into it, get into it.
That's dope. I'm not sure how long ago this was, but like, I guess ICE would pull random cars. I'm not sure if this is true. Like pull random cars to the side, like be able to I guess, like, put in custody like anyone they saw on the street that looked like an undocumented immigrant. This is probably not true at all, but like,
Right? It's so hard because the education's not there.
mhm,
If an ICE agent went up to you, like, do we know what to do? So
mhm,
I guess that highlights a lot of like the gap there. But ICE historically it's only been recently created because of like homeland security concerns, and historically they have been able to profile people in certain states such as like Arizona. They have, I think, State Bill 1250 or 1280. You could correct me, but it's if you suspect someone is an undocumented immigrant, you can ask them for their papers, which is such a blatant example of racial profiling, because
mhm,
they're not going to ask, you or me,
mhm,
Asian Americans, if we're undocumented. We have a little bit more privilege than that. They're going to ask
mhm,
people that maybe the presidential administration has demonized or villainized, right? The Hispanic community. So it's just like legal profiling has been allowed in certain states. In California or in LA specifically, which is where I'm from, we're not, our local sheriff's deputy is not allowed. They say they don't cooperate with ICE. However, sanctuary policies, they do get broken. And undocumented immigrants have experienced, like, being so close to the border in Southern California, you are subject to searches by Customs Border Patrol officers if you get to a checkpoint, or if they like pull you over and they have probable suspicion or probable cause for you being here illegally, So there are a lot of cautions. Everything is precarious, and even like legal programs such as DACA are up in the air right now. I mean, just yesterday we saw the news of them shortening DACA and not accepting any new applicants.
Can you explain how sanctuary cities work and like what they are? Because I've heard it like on the news, like
Yeah.
we're always a sanctuary city and this is a sanctuary city, but
Yep.
like what does that give you, like being in LA?
Right. We need the real policies, right?
Mhm.
So sanctuary cities, it's just a nickname, but if they do have policies, it's just that they have protocol for their police officers not to interact or cooperate with ICE. If they detain an undocumented immigrant, they wouldn't report them to ICE. Or maybe if ICE is asking them for information on someone detained or someone they're looking into, that they wouldn't like talk to ICE. Because these are different departments. So that's what a sanctuary city is mostly founded on. It tries to foster like a safe space and safe community. Like, we're not going to report undocumented immigrants to ICE. But even in my college, where my college is located in Ithaca, New York, in Tompkins County declared that they were a sanctuary city like in 2017 or so. But a couple years ago, or maybe even last year, like one on-duty sheriff's deputy called ICE on a Mexican man during an incident. So even though there are policies in place, we see that there's no repercussions for federal agencies or departments that don't follow these policies.
mhm.
So for undocumented immigrants, is being deported a fear that comes up like in everyday life? Like if I were to go down to Walmart, is that something that I would be afraid of?
It's always there, and it becomes like kind of a baseline anxiety. And I speak to this as a DACA student, as a recipient of deferred action for childhood arrivals, that your future is kind of up in the air, and the future of your family members too. So you kind of have to hold on tightly and do what you can, or maybe it forces a lot of people to hide in the shadows, honestly.
And like, what about things like taking standardized tests like the SAT or applying for college?
Exactly. Applying for college is a huge concern because undocumented immigrants don't get any federal aid, no FAFSA. And also a couple states don't like allow undocumented immigrants to join their public universities. California has really lax restrictions on undocumented immigrants, and has a separate like California Dream Act fund for them. But in a lot of states, like, there's no secure funding. at my school at Cornell, if you are undocumented, then you're just considered an international student who gets funding from the domestic pool. And like, but where's our guaranteed funding? Where's our support for our community, right? So you're restricted in your opportunities in the scholarships you can apply to and the funds that you can receive from the federal government. A lot of programs also, they mandate you to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. So there are a lot of drawbacks, and that's why it is so hard for first generation or undocumented or low-income students to find their place in these college communities.
Mm-hmm. Wait, so like, what is the documentation process of getting into like the U.S.?
It's basically applying for a visa, and then it depends on what type of visa you have, and if you overstay. A lot of undocumented immigrants have come to the U.S. not from like hopping the border, as our administration likes to like push forward, but a lot of like visa overstays. Like they just came to the U.S. for a vacation and they just like stayed. You know? Mm-hmm. So documentation is also a really tricky subject because the U.S. limits it so much.
Really?
There's only so many thousand green card applications that are accepted each year. So obviously there's like such an influx of refugees, people who need to or are motivated to economically or whatever, physiologically or sociologically come to the US. We can't keep up. Our immigration system is broken that way.
Wait, so I might be wrong, but didn't Trump do this like policy where foreign students had to go back to their country?
That is a really great concern, because what happened recently in the news is that international students, like on F1 visas, if their schools were not doing on-campus or hybrid schooling for the fall of 2020, then they'd have to go back. They were not allowed to stay in the U.S. If you were not in the U.S., you're not allowed to come into the U.S. even though you had this visa that said like, yeah, you're here to study. Mm-hmm. So a lot of international students were afraid that they were going to be unhoused. They were going to have to fend for themselves. I mean, their university, what can their universities do legally? And it was really scary because it kind of gave international students a glimpse of like the threat of deportation. And of course, the Trump administration reversed this decision after so much backlash, so many cases filed in support of international students. So we're grateful for that. But like, this just goes to show how immigrant advocacy is not just undocumented immigrants of the Latinx community. It's inclusive and intersectional and includes all non-citizens.
So like, if that policy were to actually continue to this day, like when the foreign students would have to go back to their country, when this coronavirus is over, would they be able to come back, or would they not allowed to come back?
Just because we don't know when coronavirus is over, they probably would not be able to come back in the foreseeable future.
Dang.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my prediction. I'm no legal expert.
Jeez, that's crazy.
I think that's so like fascinating that you're so like, you know, so much about like the whole immigration process.
Because
like,
I don't know anything.
Immigrants, yeah, it's just
it's important.
It's just something that like I've never heard someone like be able to talk about it like that. So I just want to like give you props for that, because I think it's something that's super important, but I haven't been able to educate myself about it, and I don't think any of us have been able to. So.
You know, I'm really glad you guys reached out to me and that I'm able to give you a little bit of insight. But yeah, I really encourage that everyone like keep researching and learning about this subject, because this is going to affect more and more people as we go on into the year.
You face a lot of failures and backlash for you being a little bit too bold. And can you like explain like some of the things that like you think that you did that might have showcased that like boldness, or that how'd you get that backlash?
Okay. Well, one of the examples is that like I would directly go to administration and just confront them. I'd just be like, we're not like supporting this, right? Like, are you gonna address this? And they'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, what are you asking for now?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, even though I graduated Whitney High School, I'm not done with my school district and local community either.
Awesome.
I'm involved. I recently got involved because my brother, he just graduated Cerritos High School, class of 2020. There was like an incident where like staff members were really rude to members of the community, of the parent community, and I was like, this is like just exemplifying how like xenophobic and how there is systemic and structural racism within your high school, and you need to change it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a meeting with the principal this summer, and like I contacted like all of school board, and I just think that because I'm not afraid to voice my concerns to those of higher authority, then that gets me a little bit of backlash, but that's always good trouble. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
all. I mean, if you know anything about Senator John Lewis's life, that's all that he advocated for, good trouble.
But I can't believe you got backlash for like being, I guess, like sharing your voice and speaking out for what you truly believe in. I don't know. I just.
Right. But, you know, my concerns are not the same as other people's concerns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
it could be like the most important thing to me and other communities, but that's why it's like, if I love you, I have to make you see the things that you cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
If we really truly love our communities, then we have to face the truth about where we're failing and where we can improve.
Mm-hmm. So like in terms of like getting people to actually kind of conform their mindset to what you believe in,
Like
how do
mobile.
you do that? Like I know like that's kind of something that's actually trying to be figured out with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
It's like I want to.
Yeah, that's so hard. So currently I'm mobilizing or organizing with my local community. I'm involved in the ABC Unity Project, which is like Artesia, Bellflower, Cerritos, as well as other local communities, Lakewood, Norwalk. And we're doing like educational resources. But you know, there's so many voices and opinions and like things that people want to see. It's so hard to collaborate at times. I mean, I am also involved on campus to get an ICE out of Cornell University campaign. And it's hard because there's different parties involved and you have to hear them all out. So I think it takes a lot of time, but if you really listen through and think strategically and also collaboratively, like I think that I've seen a lot of success in activism movements when you put your pride aside or even your organization name aside or your credit aside and simply work towards the movement instead of, you know, my club did this or like I created an org that did this.
And I know like recently there's been like cancel culture, PC culture. Do you have anything to say about like its effectiveness, how you feel about it?
Right. So I've seen the cancel culture discourse and I'm pretty familiar with it. And my view is that I think that, yeah, you should take people out of positions of power if they have the potential to use their power to oppress you, right? I see a lot of kids getting rescinded from their colleges and it's tough to face, but I don't want my future doctor, lawyer, or politician to be a racist, right? That's going to affect all of our lives. Yeah. So I think that instead of reframing into like cancel culture, I think like more like taking accountability and apprehending people for these actions, because you're thinking of the future when you're canceling, right? If you're canceling someone for something they did 10 years ago, you're not thinking of the future. You're thinking of like revenge. But if you're really thinking about the future, that's when you bring in like cancel culture and accountability.
Wait, I've actually like I've heard of the word cancel culture, but I've never actually like known what it is.
Oh yeah, cancel culture, from what I know, is when like maybe an individual or an organization displays like wrongful character or behavior, or maybe committed a criminal act, or said something really, really offensive to a marginalized group or community, that people start losing support for this person or boycotting this organization, and simply being more hands off about it, because you don't want to be involved with that type of person, right? And you don't want that type of person or influence to continue to have the large influence they might have had before. That's just my understanding, though. I'm sure there's like better definitions, infographics on Instagram that can better explain too.
If someone were to be canceled, like, is there a possibility that they could like eventually
redeem themselves?
Yes.
That is so funny. It's as if there's like a checklist, but yeah, I think that's interesting too. I think that there's no need to completely stop collaborating with an organization if they show remorse, and if they show that they're like truly have improved, right? They have to prove their character, because like in this community, at least from the places I'm advocating for, trust is earned, right? Like I said, with the security reasons, like you can't just trust anyone out of the blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that really makes sense, because like if you never, like, not talking about cancel culture, but if you never give someone a second chance, like in an interview or something, if you never give someone a second chance, like there's nothing they can do about it. And if they like improve, if they become a bigger person, if they realize what their mistakes are, then I feel like they should have that chance. And
we judge people as a society. Well, we are supposed to judge people. Like, these are individual actions of them. That doesn't, is it representative? Is it truly representative of their character? Those are questions to consider when you're canceling or uncanceling someone, right? What are their like inner intentions? And is this an isolated event, or is it a pattern of toxic behavior?
Sorry, I just want to hop in. This is a good topic, and I wanted to say something. I see a lot of things on TikTok. TikTok is really big on cancel culture. I'm on it too much, right? And like, yes, people do stuff in the past, or they do an action, and sometimes people seek out to cancel to gain a sort of like satisfaction from canceling that person. I think that's really bad. I think that's an example of it being, I don't know the word.
Toxic, honestly.
Toxic.
Yeah, and I think that you did a great job of explaining that, because when you talked about the motive behind canceling people, it kind of like stood out to me, because I've always just like heard like, oh, like this person's canceled, like they got canceled, but like the reason why you cancel someone is such a big part of like what you're actually trying to do.
Exactly. Because, what's your purpose or motivation? It's to get to the root of the cause and figure out like what you're actually supporting. And I love, Trong, that you brought up the question of like people actively seeking to cancel others. And that is just another example of like toxic policing within our own communities. Like that is not constructive at all. You have to think about if your actions are constructive to the movement or distracting to like real issues that are being pushed forward, right?
Yeah, I know a lot of canceling is pretty healthy, but I'm just pointing out like a very small sliver where people are leaking addresses, people are leaking phone numbers, and I think that's really
so dangerous.
The victim try to learn and grow from the mistakes,
right?
Because they're more scared from the negativity instead of trying to change themselves through like positive and someone trying to educate them.
You're amazing.
I'm out.
Yeah, before you cancel someone, I think it's important to know like what your intentions are, and then also, is it helpful to like to cancel this person? Like, if I speak out like, oh, I want to cancel Kanye, it's because he's speaking to like such a large crowd and influence and actually changing minds. If I want to cancel Justin for nothing, like he didn't do anything.
Well, yeah, like I like that, like
keeping our own communities accountable, I guess.
Yeah.
And you talked about thinking about if your activism is constructive or not. Do you see any other examples of people while they're like being activists and pushing like a movement of something that's unconstructive versus something that's constructive?
Right. Oh, that is like such a good topic because I was thinking about this earlier today. I ran across like a couple posts. Me and my team at the ABC Unity Project were talking about our use of the word women. And it's crazy how we have to be so intentional about how we spell women, whether it's WOMYN, WOMENXN, and then what they mean to different communities and groups. But also I saw like a lot of posts that are like, oh, using WOMXN is like detrimental to the movement. Or like I see a lot of posts that are like, oh, using WMEN are detrimental to the movement. And I understand the purposes, and it's so important to be educated on these topics, but these are just such small, trivial like spelling. I mean, it matters on a representation sense, 100% valid concerns. But these are like, I can advocate for the spelling of women, or I can advocate for Breonna Taylor's murderers to be arrested. Like, those are your options.
Mm-hmm. Just like kind of focusing on like the little things that really don't matter if you look at it in a bigger perspective.
Right. But there are a lot of little things that matter. Like,
yeah, and I think that completely ties into being constructive versus not being constructive, because looking at the bigger picture and seeing if it's actually helping the movement, I feel like that's the way that you should like check yourself at all times. Like, is what I'm doing supporting the overall movement? And I feel like that's kind of the way like what you're doing is constructive.
Exactly. I see a lot of examples too from people who are not familiar with like liberation movements, like trying to educate themselves and asking people of that community, like just out of the blue, like, oh, can you explain this to me? Or like, I really don't understand. And like just debating stubbornly, like arguing, and that's not constructive either. I mean, there are resources out there. Like for this example, there's resources out there where you could educate yourself, maximize your time. We want to think about time strategically, like where we're putting our time into and what campaigns we're like running, because that's like the most valuable thing to us. Right. And then, your resources, if you're not using your resources, like to your ability, if you're like wasting people's times with like small things like the spelling of women, then it's super hard to get any real progress done, because there's like just so much thought that goes into it, which is important, but it can't be overload.
All these social movements, is this something that you want to do as a career?
As a career, I plan to be a lawyer, go into law school, and then figuring out there, but I'm not sure. I'm totally fine like wherever I end up. I think it's like where, for me, like I'm gonna follow where urgency is, or where people are crying out for help, because in the end, like I am part of the undocumented immigrant community, and I am an ally to all these intersectional topics too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when did you first start educating yourself or start participating in activism? Was that like in high school, college, middle school? Like when did that start?
Probably at the end of my elementary years. I realized like there's like systemic oppression. So like I know we learned about like overt racism back in elementary school, but then I was reading more into it. I was exposed to some books that were, I actually read this book that really resonated with like the undocumented community among the hidden, which is like, oh, the third child has to hide under the shadows. And we had to read that in our classroom, which is really interesting because we were like exposed to this narrative where people are scared for their lives. You know, there's like an authoritative government, and I started like questioning things. So I think that I'm privileged. I live in California, so I've been encouraged to continue questioning things and continue progressing for a better world instead of like more challenged, where I've been more challenged like at my school, which is in New York at Cornell. But yeah, I think that you just get a calling to it, honestly. You see issues of the world and want to do something with it, and it's not like I'm going to do a career. Which career should I do? It's like, oh, I want to help this issue. Mm-hmm. How can I help?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you also get backlash at Cornell?
Well, there's like a bunch of advocacy campaigns at Cornell that I've been a part of that have gotten backlash. Something that's not related to immigration advocacy at all that I was a part of was a campaign against mixers and parties after the death of a freshman at Cornell in 2019 because of like, hazing and pledging.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we, a sorority sister of mine is the leader of the Pan-Hellenic Council, which is the council of like all the sororities. And like, we tried to call like all the sororities to like stop mixing with frats until we have a safety plan in place, but we ultimately failed. People chose, I mean, I hate to be biased, but like people chose partying over safety. They didn't want to give up partying. So this is like where the issue lies. Like, it's hard to garner support when not everyone cares about the issues you do.
And then like that's been like such a big issue of like trying to figure out ways of convincing them to like follow.
Exactly. I mean, someone died and they were still not convinced.
I know how scared my parents were because my sister goes to Cornell too.
Really?
In the same class as you.
Oh wait, yeah, City. Yeah.
So when they first saw that article in like the monthly like news report or whatever, they were like super concerned about like what's going on, like why are people dying on campus and all that. And I remember reading that article myself, and I was like, I was very shocked by it that it's such a like.
How could it happen? And also, how could we not do anything?
People are like so smart, like at the school, and like they should know like what the line is and what not to call.
People are smart, but sometimes in like bad ways. People involved with that case, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be talking about this, but like this is public information. People involved in that case like pleaded the fifth. So they didn't talk about it at all, even though there was like a 10K and then I think it raised a 50K reward for any information about the death. But people that attended the party with this student and were involved with it, like they didn't speak at all. And when a bunch of sororities, including mine, like started the initiative to try to garner like better policies, more transparent and more accurate policies to prevent this from happening again, we got so much backlash, like even socially. I mean, like they were like, yeah, they're going down the ranks. I mean, such frivolous things that really exemplified how we do still live in like a society that upholds like white supremacist values, like classist and elitist values.
Wait, so I'm sorry, what happened to the
I know. I feel like we should just go through it. Like we're just talking about it. What happened was that he attended an unofficial pledging party, but this is before like they accepted him into a certain frat. And then that he ended up dead in a gorge farther from his dorm. So that was like the suspicious activity, and everyone involved in the party pleaded the fifth. That's my understanding.
Wait, what's a gorge?
Oh, a gorge is like a waterfall.
Yeah, it's like a steep mountain, and then like at the bottom, there's like water and stuff.
So they just like dumped him. Wait, I'm confused.
No. I can't say anything at all. We have no idea like how this happened. But because like the cause of death was blunt force trauma, even though he was alcohol poisoned, like there's like so much concern within the Greek life community for safety for this. And then on top of that, like if we tie in our current movements today, there's so much concern for inclusion and diversity.
Dang. Wait, okay, yeah, so why wouldn't they actually sorry. I'm just like,
that's the same thing I was thinking. Like, why didn't the school look into it? Like, what's how could
I feel like maybe the school wants to save face.
Yeah.
No, it looks bad.
Oh my God, that's.
Actually, in the suit that the parents are in charge of, the school is named, so Cornell University itself. The fraternity is named Phi Psi Fraternity, National Fraternity, and then 9 students are individually named and being sued for the death of this student. So the school is being held responsible for this.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's kind of scary.
It is scary. It's so scary how like these safety concerns are like people just ignore like people's concerns to have policies in place, to have systems in place to protect others. And that's just like the most frustrating part, and maybe the hardest part of like activism work at all, just like seeing, recognizing, and dealing with your frustrations and obstacles ahead of you.
Mm-hmm. Wait, so like going back to like frats and stuff, so like what you see in the movies, like is that real actually?
What do you see in the movies?
I don't know, just like initiations, like
Yeah, those things are real. I've had a lot of peers and classmates of mine who went home crying, who had to take off their clothes outside of their dorm because it was so dirty and drenched with champagne or bucket water or whatever else they use, or who are out for days at a time. And we have a system in place for like hazing and reporting, but we have such a hard and toxic masculine culture in Greek life specifically, but also Cornell University amongst other American colleges and universities, that it's hard to shake out of. And I think it illustrates the national culture itself.
mm-hmm.
You know, we have a lot to improve on.
That's scary. I wouldn't want to go. I don't think I'm
Right? Is it worth it? It's insane.
Have you seen the movie Neighbors?
Yes, I have. No, it's exactly like that.
I'm not sure as of now or before. You were in a very predominantly male classroom, and that didn't really. It was really hard for you to be taken seriously. So could you expand on like what like the specifics of that?
You know, as a female and a minority, I feel like I've had a lot of experiences where I've had to defend my own presence to people around me, predominantly white affluent peers, but like a lot of situations where it's like you find I find myself like alone in a room and acting as the token sole representative of a minority community, and I can't speak for the entire community at all times, right? We're just one person, so it's hard and a lot of pressure when you are up against literally your people who oppressed you in the past. And I guess in a classroom sense, if you want to like refer there, I've had a lot of instances like at Cornell in specific, even though like my major, which is industrial and labor relations, is supposedly like really socially liberal and really inclusive, like there's been so many male figures that have spoken over me or mansplained to me concepts that I've already learned and mastered. And you know, those things, like I said, are not constructive to the movement.
Yeah. So have you ever, and this could be in like the classroom and outside the classroom, have you ever like been threatened by like your activist work, or like what was like one of the worst comments or backlashes or insults that you've gotten because of your activist work?
Probably to call ICE on me. Yeah. I mean, to get like really personal, I've had like who said that they would call ICE on me if I wouldn't stop like simply speaking. Or I've had people who like tell other people who tell me like, you know, I could like report this girl right now and then she could be silenced. And you know, these are just all blatant attacks and retaliations against people who simply want rights.
How do you develop a resilience to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Resilience is an interesting word because in itself, it can be toxic in it already. Like, I mean, the whole immigrant narrative is like, you know, you have to be resilient and you have to work hard, and you're expecting people to do more than a human being could to handle more than a human being could emotionally endure. Yeah. But you do develop a resilience. It's because we know that it's because we know that we're on the right side of history. You know, we believe in our mission and our faith, which is securing rights, whether it's for non-citizen people or simply Greek life.
Yeah. Going back to when like your actual family member like told you that they're gonna call ICE on you, was that like I don't know, just like being able to like hear like a family member say that, so like thinking about having a family member say that to me, did you ever have thoughts of like saying like, oh, maybe I should actually listen to them, or like I should not, I should stop
Yeah.
speaking. Like,
Yeah, I've encountered so much self-doubt. I mean, in every single project, I'm like, is it worth it? And every single time, it's because I have a communities of care. It's because like the immigrant community and all of this activist work creates such a network of caring, encouraging, and helpful supporters that you simply are empowered by other people. I think that's like the root of it. It's like you have all this self-doubt and we can't do it ourselves, but that's the goal of solidarity, isn't it? To build solidarity and to use our power and privilege as others to fight for others.
mm-hmm.
So like in the moment when someone says something like that, what can you do?
I say do it, because I said do it because I know that my community is going to fight for me. Like I have people who are going to fight for my rights just as I'm going to fight for theirs. So that's what like building solidarity and support and a network and like true allyship is.
So in terms of these like family members, do you like still talk to them, or just do you just cut them off completely?
Yeah, I still talk to them. I know that it's like really hard to talk to especially stubborn family members. I'm sure that a lot of students our age like have encountered different views or perspectives from their family members and have been challenging them. But I think like every small discussion or every mention of a liberation movement or something that you're passionate about is just another knock in the nail in the wood. You know, you're just like continually, you keep going until the nail's like all the way in. So I don't see, even though I know it's like really hard and it shouldn't burden minorities like this, but like for me personally, I would keep trying because I'm optimistic about it.
That's so awesome of you to like continue to like want to talk to them and like follow your mission, and even if like they said that such a horrid thing, like that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, because at the heart of it, if you're talking about people's rights, if you're talking about politics, people get mad not because of like what you say, but because they think they're like being threatened, or they think that like expanding other people's rights what it means diminishing your rights, your individual rights, like as a U.S. citizen. But it doesn't mean that like making space for other people and like including other communities does not have to mean you being minimized, right? That's like a really ill preconception that a lot of people have.
Could you talk a little bit about your experience with mental illness and psychotherapy?
Yeah. So I've been going to therapy since maybe high school, like the beginning of high school. And I'm a huge advocate for like mental health, because if you're not taking care of yourself, then how are you going to take care of these communities that you want to so badly advocate for? And I think that's like a huge topic in activism work and among activists is like, how do we take care of ourselves while taking care of each other? So definitely like seeking help and mental health care accessibility is one of the most crucial things to keep in mind when building these movements, because it's a lot and it's overwhelming, and it's not like you can dismantle a system of oppression over one night. You're gonna need a lot of support, including supporting yourself.
So like, so I've actually been lately going to therapy, and you know, like I think I don't remember before, but I do remember like before having this mindset of if you go to therapy, you're weak and you need another person to help you become like mentally strong. And like when I actually started going to therapy, like my mindset totally flipped. And
right,
I'm not sure if you like, I don't know if you agree with this, but I totally believe that regardless of whether you're going through an actual like mental health illness or not, like you're always okay to go to a therapist. Like I think that's so amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's totally the opposite of that notion. It's people who go to therapy, I respect, because they're emotionally mature enough to confront their internal like conceptions or what have they learned or are unlearning, you know? There are people that work on themselves for the betterment of themselves and others. So I totally see how therapy, I mean, how can you, it's a lot like to deal with life every single day as a human being, especially, I mean, in a pandemic, can I get an amen? That's like a lot. So especially right now, yeah. Organizing your thoughts and like being affirmed and validated by someone else while also learning how to affirm and validate yourself, that's something that is a skill that especially activists, but like everyone should have. We all grow up differently, but I think it's like taking care of yourself, or like learning how to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And like that learning to take care of yourself, it seems so like simple, but it's actually like, to me, it's actually like so crazy hard, and I'm still learning how to do it because
No, yeah. And especially in college. I mean, I'm sorry that if you won't be able to get the full freshman experience when the time comes, but you're thrown out there, you're alone. Once you graduate high school, a lot of students become independent. I know not all do, but it's a lot to like look at yourself. And in my personal experience, I found that therapy and also seeing a psychiatrist really helped me. I mean, there's nothing wrong with like being diagnosed or being born, you know, the way you are, and having to, we're just like trying to adapt and trying to take care of ourselves.
I just really, I really despise how competitive we are, because like when we see another person, instead of being have a community mindset of saying, oh, what can I do to help support this person? Like we most of the time go into this mindset of saying, wow, he's weaker than me, or going to like comparing. And like I say a lot, especially like at Oxford, and I don't know about Whitney, but like I just despise that so much.
Yeah, I think it's so cool that you mentioned it, because yeah, both of our high schools were considerably very competitive when it comes to college admissions and test taking. But when you take a step back and look at things through perspective of like, how can I help someone? I feel like that's where like our society progresses. You have to get to the root of like why you're doing this in the first place. I mean, why are you competitive in the first place? What are you aiming for? Like, is it to get money? Is it to help society? Because we can all work together to help society. I mean, that's like the heart of activist work in the first place too.
Yeah, and I think like that question of that you have to ask yourself is so important, yet so many people like that's like, I feel like that's the overarching theme of like why you need to reflect, and like so you can become more self-aware. Yet so many people, like I know for us, we have this teacher, like name is, but like she is super like for reflections and all that stuff. And like I know that like when she talks about reflections, I personally don't like it, and I feel like she puts a bad name on it, because I feel like reflection is such a good thing that like all of us should be doing, because it helps improve us and become like more self-aware with like who we truly are.
I feel like when someone forces you to do a reflection, or like forces you to like mindful breathing, or like even like journaling, when someone forces you to journal, then it like takes away all the power. But like when you yourself make the conscious decision to do these things that are good for your mental health, then that's where the improvement starts to show through.
I think it's all about purpose. I mean, it's all about like being intentional and very deliberate in everything you do, and which is hard. You can't expect everyone. I mean, I just want to kick back and like watch a random Netflix show at times too, and not be intentional and learn all the time, right? But we owe it to ourselves and our communities.
Yeah, so like going off to what Stella said, like what can we actually do to help others try to like find their purpose, or like try to do these things? Because like you said, Ethan, we can't force them. And then like we can't force them to find their purpose, because that's the same thing that like we're doing when we're like trying to force them to like journal or something. Like it's so like difficult. Like how do we help?
I think again, a key issue is accessibility. I think offering a lot of events and offering a lot of opportunities to get involved, right? You don't always have to start something. There are already initiatives that are doing the exact thing that you have goals towards. So get involved in like a food kitchen, or get involved in your writing club, in your newspaper. And having these opportunities for for people right now or students right now is like really imperative, because I know online access and like pandemic access because of COVID, you know, it's really been perverted right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wait. Sorry. What do you mean by perverted?
Oh, I meant like messed up,
Oh.
like sabotaged.
Oh, really? Wait. I'm so sorry. Wait, I don't really get it.
You can like pervert something if you have like, say I have like a really beautiful speech, but then I perverted it with my racism.
Oh. Oh, I get it now. Ah, shit, wait, I had something to say. Dang it.
No, take your time. I think it's important, like in these spaces, also to know that a lot of what we emphasize on in activist work is that silence and space is not always a bad thing. Like we always,
That's
yeah.
actually
Yeah,
something
that's
I need
true.
to work on, because I used like, even in these podcasts or even in general, like whenever I feel like there's silence, like when I was trying to like figure out topics to talk about, I feel like I've like it's a bad job on like
Yeah.
my communication.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. It just means that you're actually thinking about something, and
Mhm.
that just makes it like better quality.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that like fear awkward silence when they're in a conversation, but like silence itself is not inherently awkward, and it doesn't mean a bad
Yeah,
conversation. I was at
silence
a
is space.
I was at a Native American reservation one time for a mission trip, and while we were there, they were telling us that it's actually part of the community culture to like have that silence. Like there's no shame in it. There's no like weird stigma behind that awkward silence filling the room, because it's not an awkward silence. It's just silence, and it's like a pure
Mhm.
thing almost.
Yeah, and you can kind of tie that into like why we could give like people who passed a moment of silence, right? It's respect, you know.
Mhm.
It's giving it's like actually like reviewing and being thoughtful about things.
Yeah, and like whenever I've gone to like business classes or like speaking classes, right? They always say like you should create the like give yourself a moment to like think of it, like without saying like or like those filler words. That's like way better,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
like it's so hard to actually apply, because
Yeah.
whenever you just feel awkward silence, it
I
just
am the same. I'm the same. For me, I don't do like, I don't go like but I would just say like really random and really loose worded stuff in
Mhm.
class, and I'd be like, yeah, that's it. Don't know how to end this.
I totally yes, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this isn't really related to anything in your screen questions, or because I was talking to Mr. Tall yesterday, because I was working with college apps with him, and we had this we like there's a question of like describe three positive attributes about yourself, and one of the I guess characteristics that we were thinking of were like gratitude, and he was talking about how gratitude was so important and yet so undermined, and like so like gratitude, like he talked to me about how gratitude, it really motivates us to really do every quality that we look in we look in a person that we admire. So like for example, like it's inspiring. The only reason why someone has the motivation to inspire is because most of the time they're grateful for what they have. Like for me, like I do like this because I've gone through like depression and having to like go through like these like societal pressures of having to get perfect grades, and I'm so grateful for being able to get out of that experience and learning from that experience, that I want to help other people like grab that knowledge as well, because it will help them. And like so many different like characteristics about one is like it derives from gratitude. Yeah, I don't know, it's just like
No, I love
I
that.
told Mr. Todd that I was going to talk about it today.
Well, I love gratitude. I also live by that. I think gratitude is inextricably linked with also privilege and recognizing your privilege. So, like, I, for one, recognize my privilege as a DACA recipient. I am not threatened to be deported right now because I have a protection that protects me for 2 years, and I get that renewed, right?
Mhm.
So, I think that knowing like what you have and what you can do for others, yeah, that ties into pursuing your goals and being successful in caring for others. But I saw this Instagram post that I want to share maybe. I saw it was like, if you wanted to be grateful, like think about everything you had right now, and then think about everything you have right now being gone, and you have nothing. It's just the land in your home. You're sitting there, your house is gone. And then think about it being restored. You get everything back. You get your bed back, your ceiling, your walls, your drawers, and think about the feeling like you feel when that's all restored. That's gratitude. And if we can do something with that gratitude, that's how we make satisfaction and living like worth it.
Yeah, it's like if you just like can't breathe for 1 second, and then you like were able to catch your breath, like the simple like you're being able to breathe, you become grateful for it because you've had that experience of like not being able to live without it. I don't know if that connects to what you're saying though.
No, I think they're all loosely connected. We're just throwing stuff out there.
Cool. I'm super grateful. Like I believe like hearing what undocumented immigrants have to go through on a daily basis, I'm definitely more grateful for, and like feel very more privileged of not having to like deal with that stuff on a daily basis. And like I give you guys so much credit. Like I give really undocumented immigrants really a lot of credit of having to push that every day, and yet still having the time to like do other responsibilities as like a student, as like probably even working a side job as well. Like these are things that like a lot of people who are privileged won't have to deal with. And I think that's so amazing how much work ethic they have.
Right. Power to the undocumented community and other liberation movements out there right now. They're doing an amazing job mobilizing a lot of youth. But I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, the things that like we take things for granted. I mean, a lot of my peers are like, I never like really thought twice about my right to vote until you expressed to me how distressed you are because you can't vote because you're a non-citizen. I mean, people don't have a say in their elected representatives. That's just like one example to think about. We take a lot of things for granted. So if we can see like how these small things that we take for granted, we can use that for change.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are people who are undocumented, how do they get driver's licenses, or are they just not allowed to?
Yeah, it depends by state. California allows you to. I think it's like it's an assembly bill in California that allows you to have a driver's license. And New York also has a green light bill that they just passed that allows undocumented immigrants. And it was mainly the farm worker community that also pushed for that one. Undocumented farm workers that to have driver's license. So it really does vary by state, which is crazy because like depending on what state you are, depends on what rights you have.
Jeez. Wait, I remember before you talking about like if like sometimes like if like an ICE agent like confronted you and you're an undocumented immigrant and like they ask for your papers, like what could you do? Is there anything that you...
Great question. You could say no. You do not have to interact with an ICE agent. If they come to your house, you do not have to open it. If they come with a warrant, you can tell them to slide that under the door, take a look at it, see if it's signed by a federal judge. A lot of the time it's signed by like another ICE agency operative and it's not a federal judge. So they don't have the right to come into your home unless you invite them. And you don't have to answer them. And you can ask them like, am I free to go? And if they say like, no, ask them like, are you detaining me? If they say no, then see ya. I would get out of there. And if they say yes, then like continually ask, and don't give out any information. You're not obligated to give out any information. The only time you're obligated to give information is when you're at trial and you're on the testimony stand and they're like getting you questions.
I remember like I would see like some Instagram videos of like people trying to, because I like we have the right to record police officers, right? Is that right? Yeah. And then like people like the police officers telling them to like put that down, or like that they don't have the right to do that. Like I don't know, that just seems like so scary because like you have the right, yet the police officers like trying to tell you like that you don't have the right, and like it could
that's a huge topic right now because the federal government is militarizing in a lot of cities. Recently in New York, a lot of federal agents have dropped down. In Portland, I'm so sorry. My
That's
mom.
okay.
In Portland, there are so many federal agents that have their badges covered. Like we can't even identify who's going after us if there is a case in a protest that there is an altercation or interaction. So it's a matter of like the oppressiveness of the military state and the police state. Like these are all interesting concerns that they're not new. This is all like that the movement has been trying to abolish and divest from. A lot of the time, like ICE agents use intimidation tactics and try to use this like these misconceptions of having to interact with them to detain more undocumented immigrants or non-citizens.
But legally, they're like Dracula, right? They can't come in unless they're invited.
Exactly.
Wait, Dracula's like that? I never knew that.
I think so. I think that's how it goes. Like that.
No, I just knew that they can't like see themselves in mirrors and they can't go and like.
Well, they can't go inside unless you invite them in. So you're safe for now.
Just like ICE. ICE is Dracula. So like in your work, like educating people, is this the kind of stuff that you teach them? Like, hey, you have the right to say no and not let them into your house?
There are workshops that I'm not in charge of it like myself, but it's important like that everyone involved is educated. So that's why I know these things. But there are workshops to educate other people, like Know Your Rights workshops. There's a lot in LA. If you're an undocumented immigrant or someone coming from a mixed status family or affiliated and have peers and want to be involved, I would recommend getting involved with like the Dream Summer at the UCLA Labor Institute or the Labor Center. They do a lot of Know Your Rights workshops in the community and do a lot of advocacy in a local sense. And at Cornell too, there's like faculty that hold Know Your Rights workshops for other faculty who are interested in knowing how to be an ally to undocumented students.
Yeah, I had no idea about like
things
there's like, can do.
Yeah, there's like really specific teach-ins, we call them teach-ins and trainings about escalation, because before you can do a protest or a direct action or demonstration or anything, you need to like prove that you've escalated, you need to prove that you've shown your demands to like maybe an administrator and you've gotten a response, and you have to show that like your process was admissible and that your actions are admissible and that they're reasonable too. So there's a whole process before you can do any of this. Like you have to really be intentional. And I guess that's like the whole topic of what we've been talking about, being intentional and like caring for communities and those around us.
So for these workshops, like what if like, is it possible for an ICE agent to like come in and like
I was wondering that too.
Detain people based on racial profiling and like just like in the situation of like, hey, you guys are in a workshop for rights for undocumented immigrants, like do they have the right to like be like, hey, I can arrest you guys?
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, where you are. ICE agents break the law all the time. They follow parents to schools and then detain them even though they're not supposed to. Like there was a case a couple years ago. They're not supposed to go into schools, they're not supposed to go into churches, but like they do. So that's like the risk that we deal with every day with like workshops like that. But a lot of the workshops are, I mean, like the faculty workshops are directed towards faculty allies. So that is less of a safety concern. When you are marketing to undocumented immigrants, it's all about accessibility. Goes back to that. I mean, right now in the pandemic, I'm sure a lot of great options are posting it online and sharing it on social media.
But like, what if but isn't isn't it still possible that like if an ICE agent somehow gets that like flyer, they can do it and then
yeah. We've had like I said, we've had people infiltrate. We've had people who, like, this is before I joined like organizations, but like one advocacy group I'm part of, like they've had someone like who has corresponded from Fox News like infiltrate and start recording under the table, and then and like that was like a workshop in itself and like a community building activity to educate others. And that it's scary. I myself have never personally been confronted by ICE during a workshop, but wherever you are, they could get you. I've been just like driving from like LA to San Bernardino, or maybe where it's like less common than if I was in San Diego, close to the border, and have been stopped by ICE. And I was like small. So, you know what my mom made me do? Just like go behind and hide in my seat. You know, in case, you know, they're just like, you just never know. And that's like the scariest thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have one final question that we always ask to all of our interviewees, and it's if there's one piece of advice that you want the audience to take away from this, what would it be?
That there's always a new, better, more collaborative, more inclusive, more intersectional way you can do things. I mean, don't take no for an answer, because a lot of excuses, I would say, to progressing like movements or activism work is that, oh, we tried it before and we got rejected, or like, oh, we've been trying and we've been fighting for this for so long. But you should take that as something to keep you motivated. You know, people have been working so long towards this, and we're here to see it to fruition, or start the movement and see things to fruition in later years. I don't know. I feel like I'm on a tangent, but overall, I think that our discussion really like emphasized like communities of care and like caring for others. Like how can you really intentionally and purposely and genuinely do more as a person for yourself and others.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for teaching us so much about like these like rights and all that stuff, because it like.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me and being so receptive. You guys have been taking everything I say was like so kindly and responding so well and interacting. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Bye. Thank you so much.